The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with whispers and murmurs. Hundreds of alien representatives from across the galaxy sat in their designated pods, all eyes fixed on the central platform, where Princess Aurora stood tall and determined. "I will not travel with the Royal Guard," she announced, her voice clear and firm. "I choose to travel only with human crews from now on." The council chamber erupted in chaos. The royal advisor, an elderly member of her species with shimmering blue skin, stepped forward with trembling hands. "Your Highness, this is highly irregular. The Royal Guard has protected the imperial family for 10,000 years. Princess Aurora turned to face him, her silver eyes glinting under the chamber's bright lights. "And in those 10,000 years, we've become stagnant. I've watched human ships. I studied their methods. They have something we all lost long ago: the spirit of true space exploration." The head counselor, a massive being with multiple arms, leaned forward in his chair. "Princess, surely you understand the diplomatic implications of this request. Earth only joined the galactic community 5 years ago. They are—" He paused, searching for a polite word. "Inexperienced." "Inexperienced?" Aurora laughed. "Last week, I witnessed a human cargo ship rescue a stranded vessel in the Midnight Nebula. While our ships calculated a 98% failure rate and recommended abandoning the crew, the humans dove straight in. They trusted their instincts, worked together, and saved 30 lives." The chamber grew quiet. Everyone had heard about that incident, but few knew the details. "Their ships aren't the most advanced," Aurora continued. "Their technology isn't the most sophisticated. But humans have something better. They have heart, courage, and the ability to think outside standard protocols." An older human representative named Thomas stood up from Earth's small section. "Your Highness, while we're honored by your trust, we want to understand your reasoning better. What specifically about human crews appeals to you?" Aurora smiled, activating a holographic display in the center of the chamber. "Watch this," she said, playing footage from various space incidents. "See how human crews work together. They joke during tense moments to keep spirits high. They come up with creative solutions instead of following rigid protocols. They treat their ships like living beings, not just machines." The footage showed human crews performing impossible maneuvers, making split-second decisions, and celebrating their victories with genuine joy. "When I travel with the Royal Guard," Aurora explained, "everything is perfect, planned, and utterly lifeless. They rely completely on AI systems and ancient protocols. But humans—" She paused, her eyes bright with excitement. "Humans make space travel feel alive again." The royal advisor stepped forward again. "Your Highness, the safety protocols exist for a reason. The statistical risk—" "Statistics," Aurora interrupted. "Did statistics account for the human crew that saved that stranded ship? Did protocols predict they would succeed? No. Sometimes the best solutions come from here." She touched her chest. "Not from a computer." The head counselor raised all 4 hands for silence. "This is unprecedented. We will need time to discuss the security implications and establish new protocols." "With all due respect," Aurora replied, "I've already made my decision. I've selected a human vessel called the Dauntless for my next diplomatic tour. Captain James and his crew have an excellent record of both scheduled runs and emergency responses." The council chamber erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Some members nodded in agreement, while others engaged in heated discussions about the implications of this change. "The universe is not ruled by protocols alone," Aurora said finally. "It's time we remembered that. Sometimes the best way forward is to trust in the spirit of exploration and adventure that humans have managed to keep alive." The head counselor looked around the chamber, then back at the princess. "Very well. We will begin drafting new protocols for human escort ships. But know that this decision will have far-reaching consequences." Aurora smiled. "I'm counting on it." As the session ended, nobody noticed the small group of human representatives exchanging proud glances, In just 5 years, they had managed to impress one of the most influential figures in the galaxy, not with their technology or their wealth, but with something far more valuable, their humanity. The age of human space crews was about to begin. Captain James stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, watching his crew prepare for their most important mission yet. The ship, while not the newest in Earth's fleet, had character. Its metal walls bore the marks of countless adventures, each scratch telling a story. "Final systems check complete, Captain," reported First Officer Lisa from her station. She had been with the ship for 5 years, and James trusted her judgment more than any computer. "Engineering reports all systems running smoothly," added Mike from the engine room through the comm system. The sound of him tapping on pipes with his lucky wrench echoed in the background. The old girl's purring like a kitten. The arrival of Princess Aurora was announced with surprisingly little ceremony. She walked onto the bridge wearing a simple spacesuit instead of her royal garments, carrying what looked like a standard crew backpack. "Your Highness," Captain James began formally, but she raised her hand to stop him. "Please, just Aurora while I'm on your ship. I'm here to experience how humans really travel through space, not to be treated like a delicate flower." The crew exchanged surprised looks. They had expected a demanding royal passenger, not someone who wanted to be part of the crew. "In that case, Aurora," James smiled, "would you like to see how we prepare for a jump?" Her eyes lit up. "On our ships, the AI handles everything. The crew just sits and monitors screens." "Well, you won't find any of that here," Lisa laughed. "We do things the old-fashioned way, with our hands and our heads." Over the next hour, Aurora watched in fascination as the crew worked together to prepare the ship. Mike sang old space shanties while adjusting the engine timing. Lisa calculated jump coordinates while telling jokes about space debris. The navigation team argued playfully about the best route through an asteroid field. "This is amazing," Aurora said, watching them work. "Everyone's so alive. On royal ships, nobody talks during preparations. It's considered unprofessional." "Unprofessional." Mike's voice came through the comm. "Try making a perfect engine adjustment without a good tune to keep your rhythm. It's impossible." The princess laughed, a sound that made the crew smile. She had expected excellence from humans, but this was something else entirely. They weren't just working. They were enjoying themselves. As they prepared for their first jump, James noticed Aurora studying their manual control panel with intense interest. "Would you like to learn how it works?" he offered. "You mean actually control the ship?" Her eyes widened. "On my people's ships, only the AI is allowed to make jump calculations." "Well, on this ship, we trust our brains more than any computer," James explained. "Computers can't feel the ship's rhythm, can't sense when something's slightly off. They just follow programs." Over the next few hours, the crew taught Aurora their way of space travel. She learned how they used small marks on the walls to gauge vibration patterns, how they could tell the ship's condition by the sound of its engines, and how they made split-second decisions based on instinct and experience. "It's like you're all connected to the ship," she observed. "Like it's part of you." "That's because it is," Lisa explained. "The Dauntless isn't just a machine to us. She's home." As they prepared for their first major jump, Aurora sat in the co-pilot's seat, watching the crew work in perfect harmony. There were no rigid protocols, no silence, no cold efficiency. Instead, there was laughter, teamwork, and an energy she had never felt before. "Ready for the jump, Aurora?" James asked with a grin. She nodded eagerly, finally understanding why she had been so drawn to human crews. They hadn't just preserved the joy of space travel, they had perfected it. "Jump in 3, 2, 1. The stars stretched into lines of light, and Aurora felt something she had never experienced in all her years of space travel: pure, unbridled excitement. This wasn't just transportation, this was adventure. And it was only the beginning. The proximity alarm blared across the Dauntless's bridge, jerking everyone to attention. 3 ships had just dropped out of hyperspace, their signatures matching known pirate vessels from the Edge Worlds. "Well, well," Captain James muttered, quickly assessing the situation. "Looks like we've got company." Aurora rushed to the bridge window, her silver eyes widening at the sight of the approaching ships. "Standard protocol would be to immediately surrender when outnumbered 3-1, she said. "That's what the Royal Guard would do." "Good thing we're not the Royal Guard then," Lisa replied with a grin, her fingers already dancing across the control panel. "Mike, how's our engine looking?" "She's ready for whatever crazy plan you've got cooking up there." Mike's voice crackled through the comm. "Just try not to shake us apart this time." The pirate ships spread out in a classic pincer formation, trying to box in the Dauntless. Their leader's voice boomed through the communication channel. "Imperial vessel, power down, and prepare to be boarded. We know you're carrying the princess." James looked at his crew, then at Aurora. "Your Highness, you might want to hold on to something. We do things a bit differently here." Instead of following the expected surrender protocol, James fired up the ship's rear thrusters at full power, spinning the Dauntless in a tight arc. The maneuver sent loose items flying across the bridge, but every crew member stayed firmly at their station, moving in perfect sync with their ship's motion. "What are you doing?" Aurora asked, gripping her seat. "Their weapons are locked on us." "Making them think what we want them to think," James replied calmly. "Lisa, ready with that debris field map." "Plotted and waiting, Captain." The pirates, expecting their prey to either run or surrender, hesitated for a crucial moment. James used that hesitation to dive straight toward a dense field of space debris, the remains of an ancient battle that most ships carefully avoided. "They'll never follow us in there," Aurora said. The risk calculations wooled. "They won't need to follow us," James interrupted with a smile. "Mike, ready with that little surprise we installed last month." "Oh, you mean our special delivery. Been waiting ages to try this out." As the Dauntless wove through the debris field, Mike activated a series of small devices they'd been secretly releasing, each one attached to a piece of floating debris, giving the crew control over its movement. "Now," James ordered. The debris field suddenly came alive. Chunks of metal and rock moved in coordinated patterns, creating a maze of moving obstacles between the Dauntless and the pirate ships. The pirates, trying to maintain their pursuit, found themselves having to dodge increasingly complex patterns of debris. But how? Aurora watched in amazement. The calculations needed to control this many objects at once. "No calculations," Lisa laughed. "Just practice, timing, and a whole lot of trust in each other." One pirate ship, attempting to predict the debris pattern, slammed into a suddenly redirected piece of space rock. Another tangled its engines in a web of ancient cables the crew had activated. The third, seeing its companions disabled, turned and fled. "And that," James said, steering them clear of the debris field, "is how humans handle pirates." Aurora stood up, her face glowing with excitement. "That was incredible. You turned the debris field into a weapon. No eye would ever think to do that. It would calculate the risks as too high. Sometimes the best solutions are the ones that don't show up in any protocol manual." Mike's voice came through, sounding very pleased with himself. "Though I have to say that worked even better than we hoped." The crew began checking for damage and securing loose items, their movements still coordinated, but now more relaxed. They chatted and joked about the encounter, comparing it to other creative solutions they'd come up with in the past. Aurora watched them, understanding growing in her eyes. "Now I see why the statistics always fail to predict human success rates. You don't just think outside the box. You redesign the entire box while everyone else is still reading the instruction manual." James smiled. "That might be the best description of human space travel I've ever heard." As they continued their journey, Aurora knew she had just witnessed exactly what she'd been trying to explain to the Galactic Council. Humans didn't just survive in space. They thrived in it, turning every challenge into an opportunity for innovation. During the long stretches between star systems, Aurora discovered that humans had mastered something even more remarkable than space travel. They had mastered the art of making the endless void feel like home. One evening, ship time, she followed the sound of laughter to the Dauntless's common room. The off-duty crew had gathered for what they called movie night, with Mike's famous popcorn filling the air with a buttery aroma. "What's this tradition?" Aurora asked, watching crew members arrange cushions and blankets in front of a large screen. "Entertainment. During a space journey." She seemed genuinely puzzled. "On royal ships, we're expected to use travel time for meditation or studying diplomatic briefings." "Well, tonight we're studying ancient Earth culture." Lisa grinned, patting the seat next to her. "We're watching a classic called The Princess Bride." As the movie played, Aurora found herself enchanted. The crew knew every line, playfully reciting them together. They explained the jokes she didn't understand and shared stories of the first time they'd seen it. The next day, it was music. The engine room echoed with what Mike called repair rhythms, songs that helped the engineering team time their maintenance work. Aurora learned that different tasks had different songs, each with its own beat and purpose. "This one's for checking pressure seals," Mike explained, tapping his wrench in time. "And this one's perfect for calibrating the gravity generators." He started humming a slower tune. In the kitchen, Aurora discovered the joy of actual cooking. The ship's chef, Robert, believed that real food was essential for crew morale. He taught her how to make simple Earth dishes, explaining how each ingredient contributed to the whole. "Space food doesn't have to be boring," he said, showing her how to knead dough for fresh bread. Breaking bread together, that's what turns a crew into a family. The princess was fascinated by how many human traditions revolved around food. The crew held weekly dinners where everyone contributed a dish, shared stories, and celebrated small victories. "On my ships, meals are purely functional," she said one evening, savoring a spoonful of Robert's famous stew. "We take nutrient capsules at our stations." "No wonder you all look so grumpy in the official photos," Lisa teased, passing her a piece of warm bread. The crew taught her Earth card games during their breaks, each with its own complex rules and traditions. She learned poker faces were important, bluffing was an art, and that James had a tell when he had a good hand. His left eyebrow would twitch slightly. Even the ship's maintenance became a cultural lesson. Humans didn't just repair things, they improved them, personalized them, made them their own. Aurora watched as crew members added small decorations to their stations, painted marking on their tools, and gave nicknames to different parts of the ship. "Why do you call this corridor the Whistler?" she asked one day. "Because when the atmospheric recyclers need cleaning, it makes this whistling sound," Lisa explained, "like it's trying to tell us something." The princess began keeping a journal of human expressions and sayings. She was particularly fond of "knock on wood" and would often tap the ship's walls when someone mentioned their good luck. During quiet moments, the crew shared stories of Earth, its oceans, mountains, cities, and the countless cultures that called it home. Aurora learned about holidays, festivals, and celebrations from around the planet. Each region, each group of humans has their own traditions, James explained. "But we bring the best parts with us into space. It's what keeps us connected to home." One night, unable to sleep, Aurora stood at the observation window, watching the stars streak by. She realized that humans hadn't just preserved their culture in space. They had adapted it, evolved it, made it something new and wonderful. "Couldn't sleep either?" James asked, joining her at the window. "I was just thinking," she replied. "My people have been in space for thousands of years longer than humans, but somewhere along the way, we forgot how to live in it. We just exist in it." James nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Space is vast and cold, Your Highness. If we didn't bring our warmth with us, it would swallow us whole." Aurora smiled, watching the stars. She had come to study human space travel, but she was learning something far more valuable. She was learning how to make the universe feel like home. The Dauntless shuddered violently as it entered the Crimson Nebula, a massive cloud of ionized gas that could tear apart a ship's shields in minutes. Red light flooded through the windows, giving the bridge an eerie glow. Main engine temperature rising. Mike's voice crackled through the comm, tension evident in his tone. Something's not right with the cooling system. Captain James leaned forward in his chair, feeling the unusual vibration through the deck plates. Talk to me, Mike. How bad is it? Bad. Real bad. The nebula's radiation is interfering with the coolant circulation. If we don't fix it soon. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew that without engine cooling, they'd have minutes at most. Aurora watched the crew spring into action. On her royal ships, this would be the moment to abandon vessel. The safety protocols were absolutely clear about engine failures in nebula conditions. Standard procedure would be to evacuate, she said quietly. Good thing we're not standard then, Lisa replied, her fingers flying over the control panel. Mike, what if we reroute emergency power to the backup cooling pumps? Already tried. The radiation's fried the circuits. We need something completely mechanical, something that doesn't rely on electronics. James stood up, looking at the ship's schematics. The old maintenance tunnels. They run parallel to the cooling system. Captain. Mike's voice grew more urgent. Engine temperature now at critical levels. 5 minutes until total failure. The crew moved with practiced precision. But there was no panic. No chaos. Instead, Aurora watched in amazement as they began brainstorming solutions, building on each other's ideas. The pressure suits in Cargo Bay 3, Lisa suggested. They have manual cooling systems. And the pipes from hydroponics, Robert added from his station. They're radiation shielded. James nodded. Mike, we're going to build you a manual cooling system. Right now. What followed was something Aurora had never seen before. The crew stripped down the pressure suits, harvesting their cooling units. Robert and 2 others ran to hydroponics, returning with armfuls of piping. In the engine room, Mike and his team worked to create connection points for this makeshift system. 3 minutes to engine failure, the computer announced calmly. Your Highness, James turned to Aurora. We could use an extra pair of hands. That is, if you're willing to get them dirty. She didn't hesitate. Throwing off her outer robe, she joined the assembly line, passing tools and holding pipes in place as the crew welded them together. 2 minutes to engine failure. The makeshift cooling system looked nothing like the sleek technology she was used to. It was ugly, crude, and absolutely brilliant. They had created a manual pump system that would circulate coolant without relying on electronic controls. 1 minute to engine failure. Now or never, Mike called out, activating manual bypass. The ship groaned as the new system engaged. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the temperature gauge began to drop. It's working, Mike shouted. Temperature stabilizing. We did it. The crew cheered, but they weren't done yet. For the next hour, teams took turns manually operating the pump system, maintaining a steady rhythm that kept the engine cool as they navigated through the nebula. Aurora worked alongside them, her royal status forgotten as she helped turn the crude pump handle. Her arms ached, but she had never felt more alive. You know, she said between shifts, any other species would have considered this ship lost. The protocols all say that engine failure in a nebula is unsurvivable. James wiped sweat from his forehead, grinning. Protocols are just suggestions. Problems don't care about protocols. They care about solutions. As they finally emerged from the nebula, Aurora looked at her grease-stained hands with pride. The crew was exhausted but triumphant, their makeshift solution having saved not just the ship but everyone aboard. This, she declared, this is why I chose to travel with humans. You don't accept defeat. You don't surrender to statistics. You just keep finding ways to survive. Mike's voice came through the comm, tired but happy. That's the thing about humans. Your Highness. We're too stubborn to let a little thing like impossible odds stop us. The Dauntless continued on its journey, now carrying not just its cargo and crew, but also a new story of human ingenuity, one that would soon become legend in the space lanes. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council seemed different now. Aurora stood at the center platform again, but this time she wasn't alone. Captain James and his crew stood beside her, their presence causing quite a stir among the assembled representatives. Members of the Council, Aurora's voice carried across the chamber. I stand before you to share my experiences traveling with the human crew of the Dauntless. She activated a holographic display, showing footage from their journey. The pirate encounter, the Nebula crisis, and dozens of smaller moments that demonstrated human ingenuity and spirit. As you can see, she continued, these humans didn't just transport me safely. They showed me a completely new way of approaching space travel. The royal advisor stepped forward, looking troubled. Your Highness, while these achievements are interesting, they hardly justify changing our established protocols. Actually, a new voice rang out. It was Ambassador West from the Trade Federation, rising from his seat. I would like to request a human crew for my next diplomatic tour. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. The Trade Federation was one of the oldest and most conservative organizations in the galaxy. You can't be serious, the royal advisor sputtered. Their ships are practically primitive compared to ours. Primitive? West laughed. My last 3 ships, with all their advanced AI and protocols, failed to navigate the stellar storm belt. Meanwhile, I watched footage of the Dauntless dancing through it like it was a training exercise. More representatives began standing up, each sharing stories they'd heard about human crews. The Medical Council praised their quick thinking during emergency evacuations. The Mining Guild spoke of human ships successfully navigating asteroid fields that their AI systems deemed impossible. The statistics don't support this, the royal advisor insisted. Their success rates shouldn't be possible with their level of technology. That's because you're measuring the wrong things, Aurora explained. You're measuring computer processing speed and automated response times. But how do you measure creativity? How do you quantify the human ability to see solutions where none should exist? Captain James stepped forward. If I may, he said, his voice steady, we humans don't see space as something to be conquered with technology. We see it as something to be experienced, understood, and respected. Our ships might not be the most advanced, but they're extensions of ourselves. The Trade Federation ambassador nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. I've analyzed the reports. Human crews have a 40% higher survival rate in unprecedented situations. They adapt, they innovate. They live, Aurora finished for him. They don't just exist in space. They live in it. More requests began pouring in. The Science Division wanted human crews for their research vessels. The Diplomatic Corps asked about training programs. Even the notoriously cautious Mining Guild expressed interest in human navigators for their more challenging routes. The head counselor raised his hands for silence. This is unprecedented. The implications for galactic transport protocols are enormous. Perhaps, Aurora smiled. It's time our protocols evolved. Humans have shown us that space travel doesn't have to be cold and clinical. It can be warm, alive, and still perfectly safe. The royal advisor made one last attempt. But the regulations, the traditions, are holding us back. Aurora cut in firmly. While we've been following 1,000-year-old protocols, humans have been developing something far more valuable, the ability to think beyond them. The council chamber buzzed with excited discussion. Representatives from different sectors huddled together, already planning how to incorporate human crews into their operations. Captain James watched it all with quiet pride. You know, he said to Aurora, when we first joined the galactic community, everyone thought we were too primitive to contribute anything meaningful. Aurora smiled. Instead, you're teaching us how to rediscover the joy of space travel. The galaxy is changing, Captain, and humans are leading that change. The head counselor called for a formal vote. The results were overwhelming. Human crews would be officially recognized and recommended for high-priority transport missions. As the session ended, Aurora looked at the dauntless crew with pride. They had done more than prove themselves worthy of trust. They had started a revolution in how the galaxy approached space travel. The age of human crews had truly begun, and the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter for it. The Earth Space Academy gleamed under the morning sun, its new buildings a perfect blend of human and alien architecture. Princess Aurora stood at the podium during the grand opening ceremony, looking out at the eager faces of the first class of mixed-species students. 3 years ago, I made a choice that many thought was foolish, she began. I chose to trust human crews with my safety. Today, that choice has led to something far greater than I could have imagined. Behind her, Captain James and his crew from the Dauntless sat proudly. They were now instructors at the Academy, ready to share their knowledge with the galaxy. This Academy, Aurora continued, will teach more than just space navigation and ship maintenance. It will teach the human way of thinking, of living in space, of turning challenges into opportunities. The assembly hall was packed with representatives from every major spacefaring race. Many had sent their best pilots and engineers to learn from humans, a scenario that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. Lisa, now the Academy's head of navigation, stepped forward to demonstrate the first lesson. Instead of using the standard holographic simulators, she had set up an old-fashioned ship's wheel. "Feel the resistance," she told a young alien student who gripped the wheel. "That's your ship talking to you. No computer can replicate that sensation." In the engineering section, Mike had set up actual engine parts rather than virtual models. "You need to know how it feels, sounds, and yes, even smells," he explained to his fascinated students. "A machine isn't just numbers on a screen. It's alive in its own way." The Academy's curriculum was revolutionary. While it included all the necessary technical knowledge, it focused heavily on practical experience, creative problem-solving, and teamwork. Students learned to cook together, watch Earth movies, play games, all the cultural elements that made human crews so effective. "But what about the protocols?" asked a nervous alien official watching the training. "Oh, we teach those too," James smiled. "We just also teach when to throw them out the window." Earth had become the new center of galactic transportation. Ships from all over the galaxy now stopped at human ports, not just for supplies, but to learn and exchange ideas. The old rigid hierarchy of space travel had given way to something more dynamic, more alive. Aurora walked through the Academy's halls, watching students of different species working together, sharing stories, learning from each other. In one classroom, a group was analyzing the Dauntless's nebula crisis, not just studying the technical solution, but understanding the teamwork and creativity that made it possible. "You've created something remarkable here," she told James. "This isn't just a school. It's a bridge between cultures." "Humans have always been good at that," he replied. "We learn from everyone we meet, adapt what works, and share what we know." The Galactic Council had officially recognized the human method as the new standard for space crew training. Ships with human-trained crews reported higher success rates, better morale, and more innovative solutions to problems. But more importantly, they reported something that couldn't be measured in statistics: joy. The joy of discovery, of overcoming challenges, of making the vast emptiness of space feel like home. In the Academy's observation dome that evening, Aurora watched Earth's sunset with the Dauntless crew. Students from a dozen worlds sat around them, sharing stories and dreams. "When I first chose to travel with humans," she said, "I was looking for better space travel. Instead, I found a better way of living in space." A student raised their hand. "Is it true the human ships still use manual controls?" "Of course." Mike laughed. "How else would you feel the ship's heartbeat?" As night fell and the stars came out, the mixed group of humans and aliens continued their discussions. They talked about new innovations, shared jokes that needed 3 different translators to make sense, and planned future adventures together. The academy stood as a symbol of change, a bridge between the old way and the new. It was more than just a training facility. It was proof that sometimes the best way forward is to remember what made space travel magical in the first place. And as Aurora watched the next generation of space travelers learn from each other, she knew that the galaxy's future was in good hands, human and alien alike.